Hello everyone, my name is Susan Morales and my YouTube channel focuses on learning to follow Jesus in an everyday kind of way. I would love it if you would subscribe and follow along. Today I want to talk to you about the Passover and how that relates to our Christian walk. You might be thinking, what is the Passover and what does that have anything to do with me? Should I even watch this video? It feels like it's irrelevant, but trust me, this is something that you want to learn more about. It's going to deepen your Christian walk with God. So yesterday was April the 5th, 2023, and on my calendar it showed up as Passover. And as someone that might not be very aware of all of the holiday dates that show up on my iPhone or calendars and all of that, that just unfortunately seems like one of them. Like, yeah, that's a holiday that some people somewhere over there in the world celebrates. And I would love to know more about that, but I'm really busy, so I can't learn more about that. I think it was the vice president, she tweeted something about the Passover, and I think it was a picture of her meal. It has to do with the traditional meal that goes on that specific day. I just remember thinking, you know what? I would love to be able to do something like that. I've seen one person maybe on YouTube, a homeschooling mom, do that on a previous year where she, went out of her way to prepare a special meal. And I just remember thinking, like, how does she even know what to prepare, and why did she even come up with the idea of doing that, as part of her Christian life? And I just kind of put it in the back of my mind. In the last years, I've been learning more about the Jewish religion, more in depth, and I had heard about how the Passover connects to Christianity. And yeah, that's all good and everything, and it's amazing when you first hear about it, but if we don't really do our own research and really try to get to the heart of this issue, it's just one of those things that just gets organized in your mind. I learned about that, and check. It's just something you check off your list. So this year I've been talking about this topic with my kids in particular and my husband, but for example today, it's the day after what is, it doesn't say that Passover continues on my calendar, although on, I forgot where I saw that, it goes from the 5th to another day. So it seems like there's this process. Life was busy yesterday, and like I said, I felt I would have liked to have known about what to prepare and all of that. I thought about, going and doing a quick search online about what is required to do this meal, but if you don't prepare ahead of time, of course, it's going to be a challenge to do it the day of, right? My daughter, I think she read in another book by the man that created the Veggie Tales. I think his name is Phil Vischer. I'm not sure if that's how you pronounce it. But he came out with this amazing book for kids. I don't have it here, but let me see if I can look it up real quick, because I do recommend it. I think it's the best book that I could recommend to parents for their kids. And I know that he seems to be a little controversial on his grown-up, social media or his own YouTube channel when it comes to certain topics, but the book itself isn't like that. And it really does focus on teaching kids about the Bible and how to understand it. And this was helpful in particular with my daughter, and I'm going to look it up just so that you know what it is. It's called Laugh and Grow Bible for Kids. And absolutely love it, absolutely recommend it. And I believe that's where my daughter learned about the Passover and how it relates to Christianity. And she had read about the things that you're supposed to eat on that day. One of the things was, I don't know how you pronounce it. That's why I have my phone here so that I could do a search on the spot to make sure I say it right. So I'm going to pronounce the bread, how it's called. How do you spell it? Okay, I think it's this. No, that's the T. Bread, ma. Okay, got it. Yeah, because it's a different language. So how to pronounce this? Let's see.
Matzah.
Matzah. Yeah. So that's how we were saying it. And so my daughter today was like, "Can we buy some matzah bread?" And I was like, "Yeah, okay, we'll go get some." And I didn't even know what it looked like. I thought it was one of those like tortillas that I guess that's like totally different culture. But we got lucky and we saw this big box that said matzah. And so we got it. I was like, oh, I'm not sure if I should get it. It's like a huge box. What if we don't like what it tastes like? And I didn't see any smaller boxes. So we ended up getting it. We had our dinner, just regular dinner. And then we had the bread. And it's like this large square cracker, I would describe it. And it tastes just like the little tiny pieces of bread that they give us for communion at church. And I couldn't get enough of it. I don't know why, it's like delicious, or maybe it's because I always feel like I only have a tiny bit at church and I want like more of it because I only get so little. I don't know, maybe I was just hungry, but that bread was delicious. But I'm just wanting to share with you where I'm at as a Christian and really trying to learn about the roots of Christianity. I was telling my kids Christianity began with the Jews. From the very beginning, when Abraham received that promise that God was going to use his children, his descendants, to bless the whole world. And that was the promise of Jesus Christ. He would come through their descendants, and God was going to use his descendants to show us so much about himself through them. And the first disciples were Jewish, and the early church was Jewish, and they were the ones that shared, the gospel to the world. That's how God planned it. And so we have this Passover that we learn about in the Bible, but somehow throughout church history, even the church history that we're living in today, that we are a part of, it just seems so separated. And it's something that here you have this very normal Christian person, slightly perhaps a little more interested in learning, going deeper into Christianity, different topics. But still, all my life, having taken communion, having learned a little bit about the Passover, and yet still, it's not like I can just tell you everything about it right now as a Christian. And Tomorrow is Good Friday, and I was also talking to my family about how something happened in history, and that's something that I need to explore. I thought I might find it in like this book that I have. I have the 2 volumes of church history, and I thought I might find it in here. After I read, maybe. But what I did see is that there's a whole lot of church history that shows how differently Christians have done things throughout history. So I just thought, how come, how come we have this lack of knowledge? And that's what I wanted to share with you, my search. So a few days before the Passover was going to come, I was thinking, you know what, I definitely want to learn more about this, and with my kids. So there are 3 resources that I came across that you might want to check out for yourself. I haven't read them just yet. I've read just a tiny bit, skimmed them. But this is what I plan on doing the next days. This is how I plan on using these holy days to dive deeper into the roots of Christianity, the Jewish roots. And so I was telling my family how we know so little about the Jewish Christians, and it's unfortunate. There's this, I think I need to read another book where it actually goes into why that happened, why. I think I heard something about that there was this ugly part of church history where they wanted to disassociate themselves from the Jewish people, and so they decided to, I don't know if this is true, so this is just what I heard. Correct me if I'm wrong, and do your own search and come back in the comments and let me know if what I said is wrong and where I can get the right information if it isn't right. But I know that the Jewish people have their own calendar, and that Christians have decided to celebrate Jesus' death and resurrection on a different calendar. So sometimes Passover is like here, and then Christians are celebrating over here, and so I've heard one Christian apologist, so many doctors, Michael Brown, he promoted that we celebrate Easter around the same time as the Passover. So definitely this is going to be a longer Holy Week for me. It's going to continue past Sunday, and I'm sorry that you can hear my kids in the background, but that's life, right? So here are the 3 resources. The first one I came across was this one, that it seems more kid-friendly. So it says, "What is Passover?" And it actually is a part of a collection. I think it's a 6-part collection. I could be wrong though. And it has like more different, going more into specifically Jewish holidays. Let me see if I can get it here real quick. I know I can. So I'm going to go to what is Passover, and the author is Sherry Lass. And what's interesting about this author is that apparently she's 6 books in this collection. It's the Jewish Holiday series, and apparently this author she has written books on a wide range of topics, from Star Wars and Lego to dinosaurs and the human body. And I just thought that was awesome. Yes, definitely. We like all your Star Wars and Lego books, so let's take a look at this other book. But I wanted to check out her other books. So there's one that's What is Purim, What is Hanukkah, What is Shavuot, I don't know how to pronounce it, sorry. What is Rosh Hashanah. Did I say Sukkot already? No, it's different. So I don't know if that was 6, but I I wanted to check out this one first and then see if I want to get the other ones too. Definitely want to check out the other ones. So just to skim it real quick, it's something that we'll be reading together this weekend and week to come. This is the bread that we ate. It looks like a large cracker. It's awesome, and it even came with like a little Ziploc bag where I guess we just figured that's where you put the ones that you're not going to eat immediately. So it gives you the story of Passover, the 10 plagues, which is the story that's connected, the story that we know. And I don't know if we actually even think about that story when we take communion, which is, that's what it is, right? I want to read to you from my other resource right now about why we miss the significance of this. So here it says 8 days of Passover. So that's why I saw, okay, it's longer than just one day. This thing right here, you go on Amazon and they have all kinds of plates, and I'll look into it next year because I don't know if you even need one necessarily, but yeah. So looking forward to learning that information with my kids. After that, I thought, okay, let me look for something that it definitely connects Christianity to the Passover, because this was kind of a shock to me like a while ago that not every Jewish person believes in Jesus Christ. So the way they might be celebrating the Passover may not include Jesus, So definitely wanted to find a resource, and this is a pamphlet, Christ in the Passover, Celebrate a Christian Seder.
Seder.
History and symbolism, elements of the Seder, comparison of the Seder and the Lord's Supper. And it opens up like this. See how long it is? Both sides. Wanting to read through that as well. And then I saw that it was like one of the top rated. I try to look for ratings a lot of the times. And so a quick reference. But I wanted to get like more of a book. And this is, it's sort of a book. It's more like a little booklet. But to me, I just started reading it. It's called The Messianic Passover, Haggadah. I don't know if that's how you say it. But so far, what it seems to me is that, yes, it is explaining what things are in a very simple way. It even gives you like key for pronunciation of Hebrew transliteration. And it was kind of funny because like at one point it says KH and CH have no actual English equivalent. They are guttural sounds which are made in the back of the throat, which I'm like curiously trying to figure out like what those sounds could be. But anyway, the first page that I read, it shows leader. So I'm guessing this is more like something that you would do with your family, and you would just agree, okay, you're going to be the leader. I know that it's probably more meant for the husband perhaps, but I'm sure that if there are different homes that maybe the father's not a believer, I'm sure like someone else could be the leader, So anyway, I think how I envision using this would be that I would be, or my husband would read through this section, and then like the next page, it says leader again, so someone would read that, and then a woman lighting the candle says, and then they have the original language, but then on the bottom it has the English version. And then it says leader, and so far I'm like seeing preparing for Passover, and I think that's what I wanted to end this video, just to talk about the significance. There was this, okay, I'm going to read this quick little paragraph right here. One of Messiah's last earthly acts was the celebration of the Passover. Gathering his friends in a small room in Jerusalem, he led them in a Seder, which I looked at the translations to what that meant, because here it gives you Luke 22:15, and it says Jesus saying this, I have really wanted so much to celebrate this Seder with you. And all the translations I looked up, it said this Passover with you. Because, even just a word like Seder, there's that cultural separation, right? It's like we don't understand. What are you talking about? What is Seder?
Seder.
And so that's Passover. And he passed the foods among them. It was there in celebration of the deliverance from Egyptian bondage that Yeshua, Jesus, revealed to them the mystery of God's plan of redemption. He spoke to them of his body and blood. He explained to them that he would have to die. And then it says, it was no coincidence that Messiah chose the Passover for the setting of what is called by some communion, or the Lord's Supper. For in the story of the Passover lamb, Yeshua could best communicate the course he would be taking over the confusing hours that were to follow. Here, as we participate together in the Passover Seder, may we recall once again God's great redemption. And what got me thinking when I read that was that so true. When we think of Jesus having that Last Supper with his disciples, we think Last Supper, we think communion. That's why we do it, because we remember, and like what the Bible says, Jesus said, every time you do this, you remember, you remember me, you remember what I did. You're communicating this message to the world. But like I said earlier, how many times do we actually realize that Jesus was so wanting to have this Passover meal with his disciples? Because they're Jewish people, right? Jesus was a Jewish person and his disciples were Jewish, and so they understood what it was commemorating. The page before, I think, it says, tradition teaches that in each generation we must consider ourselves as having personally been freed from Egypt. As we prepare for this experience of personal redemption, let us put far from us the leaven of sin hidden within our hearts. So it has a connection to going from slavery to freedom, and so is sin, right? So we can see ourselves in this story that God illustrated through his chosen people, Israel. And there's that context that makes it so much more revelatory in that Last Supper, that Passover meal where Jesus says, you see this lamb, you see this wine, that's what I'm about to do. And so for us now, we should be thinking about that. When I think Christians need to come back to their Christian Jewish roots, in as far as educating ourselves about the Jewish context of Christianity. You can't have Christianity without the Jewish Christian context. So I'm not saying that as Gentiles we have to do whatever the Christian Jewish people do. What I'm saying is that we might benefit as Christians to not be so driven by traditions, and instead try to come back to what is the most biblical way that I can ground myself to my beliefs relating to Jesus Christ. So if the Passover was something that was important to him, was the context for us to understand what he did, then I think that needs to be fresh in our mind every year, just like we do Good Friday, remembering that he died on the cross, Resurrection Day, or Easter, remembering that he rose from the great if we also need to remember, what did God teach us through the Passover about what he did? How does this connect to Good Friday and Easter? So for sure, I'm not saying I've done the work yet. I'm just saying I hope that I can encourage you to put in the time, not just during this week or this weekend, but just make it a point. Like, be honest with yourself. If someone asked you, what is the Passover? Like, what does it mean that when Jesus made that connection to that Passover meal that we call communion, what does that mean? Like, why did he do it in that way? Why not just when he did the miracle of the bread, like, why not just do something unrelated to Passover? So I definitely think that we as Christians need to stop being content with not knowing all the answers and feeling like, well, that's just something that the pastors should know and people that go to seminary should know. Now, I definitely think that we can invest a few dollars in like some resources and invest some hours into learning this and going over it, reviewing it every year. I'm convinced that, God willing, around this time next year, my faith will be that much more stronger. My emotions will be that much more impacted by the knowledge that I know what these symbols represent truly, and I can make those attachments in a less surface, in a greater manner than just the surface level basic knowledge, which is good that we have basic knowledge, but let's go deeper, right? So I wanted to share that with you. I hope you have a wonderful Good Friday and Easter or Resurrection Day and Passover week. I'll see you on the next video, guys. Remember to like this video if you want my channel to grow so more people can learn more about how to follow Jesus in an everyday kind of way. Joy to